Good morning, dear participants. We are actually in the big hall in the Goetheanum, and after this very impressive study and performance with the Michael ladder we just had, we go now to the next key account contribution, and we are here in the very special situation that the speaker is with us but on the screen, because our speaker, Father Clement, is actually in India, in South India, and he will give his contribution from his place, because it was not possible to travel, and we are in the challenge that we are together, being thousands of kilometers away, each from the other one. So, good morning, Clement. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. I can hear you. Good morning, Yuli Huta.
I would like to have a connection with Clement. Is it possible, dear technical people? Okay, not possible actually. We have the image, but I can't hear Father Clement here in the room. Now I have a sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Father Clement. Is this your voice?
That's right. Good morning to you. And
good morning.
To
good morning. So, nice. We have a connection, and I will try to introduce you to our audience. So, Clement is much different aspects in one personality. I try to give some of them. He is working as a ground worker with very, very poor people in the south of India. And the place and the initiative is called Muhil Gardens. And perhaps one imagines a kind of very, let's say, romantic situation, but that's not the case. Because Muhil means the movement for universal health and liberation. And this universal health and liberation is brought to the Dalit and tribal people in the villages of south of India. And at the same time, Muhil is a Tamil word for a cloud which brings rain to the dry land. So this is one aspect of Father Clement's engagement. And as I already said, he is Father Clement, and it means he is a Catholic priest. And it was not the way that he has been priest and then going out to the land. No, he was already engaged by helping the vulnerable people, and for to help them, for to be able to bless them, he became a Catholic priest. And when he will speak now to the title, Spirituality for Our Earth, he has his background from very different spiritual religions and spiritual traditions, but actually he brings them together, and especially on and with his groundwork. And a third aspect of what he represents and what he is actually he is secretary of the Biodynamic Association of India, because in the villages and with hundreds and thousands of families, they bring biodynamic practices to the ground, in the gardens, and not so much for to have biodynamics, let's say for the products, but biodynamics for the livelihood of these people. It helps to have a sustainable livelihood and that the life of this family improve in some way when it is done on a biodynamic basis. So, dear friend Father Clement, you took up the challenge to speak to us, to the third party of our theme of the conference, breathing with the climate crisis, ecologically, societally, and spirituality. Your theme is spirituality for our earth. And I invite you actually to take on and to give your contribution. Thank you so much to be with us.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to address you from this part of the world. And I would like to take up this topic of spirituality and see how I can walk with you for this hour. As Uli Huta, my good friend, called up and asked me to make this contribution, it seemed a crazy idea. Because spirituality is something that is held within a very small pocket of people. And they think spirituality immediately goes into religion and goes into God. But if we open up the doors of spirituality to go beyond talking about God and going beyond the churches and temples and prayers, then spirituality is a global reality. That global reality is what I have experienced during the past nearly 20 years, half of the years of my priesthood as a Catholic priest for 40 years. I do prayers, I worship, I meet people, and as a Catholic Christian in India, it takes a lot of my time. But I'm sharing this faith with a very small minority of people in my country. Very small minority, a little more than 3% of the millions and millions of people we have in our country. The millions of people do not share my faith. They do not pray like me. They believe in life after death. They believe in life before death. They believe in many things. These millions of people, and we who are minority, we are also millions in our country, but we share one common platform. A common platform called this common earth. And whether we use the scriptures or we use the tradition, we use rituals, we are dealing with the same matter. And the matter is not something abstract, is not conceptual. The matter is physical elements of earth, water, breath, fire, heat, and space. In India, in the group of people whom I researched, the sages in Tamil Nadu called Tamil Siddhas, like in other places, we believe in 5 basic elements that are immortal and eternal. Earth, the soil, whether it is on the planet Earth or anywhere else. It is dust, cosmic dust. Yeah, I'm using the word cosmic. That's the reality I wanted to say. The matter is cosmos. Cosmos is something that we humans are encountering in this myriad of confused reality, chaotic reality. There are systems called the solar system. There are waves of bodies moving in space called the galaxy and the Milky Way. And we have an astrophysicist, one of the best, and we lived with him, and there is Stephen Hawking, who explained to us not so much what is there, but why it is there, the grand design. I'm much caught up with this common home, not simply planet Earth, but the cosmos of unimaginable number of years and history. And we are there on this planet Earth, and we are talking quite a lot on spirituality. This is the spirituality I want to talk about. The spirituality where the sun never rises or sun never sets. It is the earth that is spinning around on its own axis. The earth that's spinning around on its own axis is more like a drunken monk that is spinning at an axis, at an angle. And we move round and round the globe. Every 24 hours, we come back to the same place on the planet Earth. And we think the sun has gone around us, but we are going around the sun in a whole year. And there is the lunar cycle that goes around the earth. This itself is something stupendous for us to imagine, because we find the wind against our skin battering when we are riding on a motorcycle at 40, 50 kilometers. When we are flying in the air or jumping down the air, we need goggles, we need helmet, we need jackets. Our skin is so sensitive. And yet here is this big planet Earth that's hurtling around the space. Every 365 days, it finishes one round, one orbit around the sun. Unimaginable distances in this astrophysics. So matter is not something abstract. It is real. This reality is something that we are not able to illustrate or imagine. We only caricature. We caricature the imagination. Now, in this kind of a cosmos, there are two principles I would like to stress on, and that is immortality and eternity. While there is no birth or no death in religions, we feel that religion allows us to think about immortality and eternity. How can we fix that up with this body? As a Catholic priest, I've been told that there is resurrection, but I know that I will be buried. But Jesus seemed to have said, if you believe in me, you will not die. But I know I have buried a lot of people. And during tsunami, I did mass burial in the coastline in South India. So death is a reality for us. Birth is a reality for us. Then where comes this immortality? And what is this concept of eternity? Spirituality wants us, spirituality challenges us, and our intelligence demands an explanation. And the simple example that we can think of is power, energy. In India, we use the word Shakti. Shakti. You and I have eternal and immortal Shakti, not totality of Shakti, but a share, a spark, a kick of this cosmic power. And so this power, what we call Shakti, in Tamil, in my language, we call it Attral. This power is within you and me and all around me, visible, sometimes not visible. And this power is the ground of spirituality. This energy is the ground of spirituality. This Shakti in India is the feminine gender of cosmic eternal power. And the masculine consort of this Shakti is Shiva. Shiva, the god, who is considered so important in India, but he's often discussed folk religion-wise as the god of destruction, dancing on the burial grounds, the burning guts. But Shiva is the masculine aspect of Shakti. I'm not here to talk about Shiva or Shakti as divinities. I'm here to talk about the reality of power, energy, and dynamics. In the agricultural conference, we are dealing with biodynamic agriculture, biodynamics. And that's what I mean by power. and you and I share in that power, and we call that Atma. In Europe, you call it soul in English, anima. But this Atma is not the spiritual soul, but it is the cosmic power that is individualized in every object of reality. And we never get the whole of it inside us, but we get a spark of it. We get a kick of it. We get a share of it. And so, my dear people, I think we need to recognize this power as the ground of spirituality. My power, I realize as Atma Shakti, as soul power, but that becomes useful to me and I begin to understand and enhance it, only we become enlightened or illumined or assume this power. And so we become self-power. We become an identity. We give ourselves a profile. There may be millions of people, but only a few begin to appropriate this power and enhance it. They enhance it not only for them, but all around them, and therefore they are enhancing their home, their neighborhood, their environment, their entire society and the cosmic reality. And so our common planet Earth, while it breathes crisis, is capable of recognizing, it's capable of recognizing this power that each one can begin to appropriate. And millions of people, millions of animals, millions of living beings, when they begin to recognize the power, this is called Shuya Sakti. That means we appropriate it, and the humans, literally, they begin to operate the dynamics. They mingle the dynamics. They recognize the stellar influence, the lunar influence, the solar influence, and they recognize how it affects the cow, the horns, the manure, the dung, the plants, and the fruits and the seeds. And putting together this biodynamic agriculture, we not only have among ourselves a sharing of the Shakti or this power, we are beginning to recognize this as our common power. And recognizing other humans all around, we create or we are part of what may be called the people power. In India, we call it Jan Sakti. Atma Sakti, Suya Sakti, Jan Sakti. Jan Sakti means people power. People power is something not the political democratic power of the votes, of the weapons. It's the spiritual power that is enhanced when we are in one orientation, when we are in one concentration, when we become a concentric union of this self-power, we become a people power, and this people power literally moves on. We need to move further into another aspect. This people power is dormant unless we are able to constructively do something with human intention. We are constantly creating something. We are constantly intentionally applying this power. And as we apply this power, we are creating and enhancing the neighborhood. We are recognizing what is disturbing. We put it into balance. We enhance what is good and we enrich it. And in the long run, ultimately, we are able to identify a certain amount of righteous order, a balance. So when we say we are breathing a climatic crisis and we recognize the breadth of the crisis, we are actually recognizing the aspiration of the divine element, the spiritual element in the cosmos, the spiritual element which allows that we should not only do something, but we should do it correctly and together. And therefore, whatever we are doing, whatever we are engaged in, we are putting together something beyond what is capable by us, beyond what is possible by us. And in this possibility, we recognize the movements that is beyond our capacities. I can only tell you about Muhil, a Muhil that we started about 20 years ago in kind of thorny bush and barren land. We came here to distribute herbal medicine, but the herbal medicine needed authentic herbal plants. And when we saw the soil so polluted and lack of water, and people migrating out of this land, abandoning their own farmlands, we began to put together a design that we could get them involved to ensure their own health, reappropriate their own land, harvest whatever water that is possible, clean up the mess, and create anew. And in 20 years, what we did was from soil to oil, and we created this Rosa grass. We thought this stupid looking grass, which grows anywhere and everywhere, might give us a stepping stone to the future. Soil to oil, because this grass has exquisite aromatic oil. And this aromatic oil is herbal and medicinal. And if this oil comes from a very authentic grass which has no chemicals, no contamination, the oil that can be distilled from this oil is excellent as a spiritual oil. It is not an ointment. It is an oil that is distilled and it vaporizes. It's a combination of earth, water, and various elements, and ultimately in the spiritual world, we can call it as a fire oil. So it's not it will burn, but this oil removes all the nervine problems and energizes the structure of our being. Going from ordinary organic farming, reaching up to Demeter certification, we bring our people beyond the realm of illiteracy and poverty to an awakening of human consciousness. To put the cow dung together, to put the manure together, to put the plants together, to begin to come out of the crisis that we are doomed to die, to a mindset that there is a boom to our future. We can bloom, we can blossom, we can in fact come alive. And so, from death to resurrection, nature is capable of assisting us because we are children of nature. Dust, unto dust you return is not a curse. It is God telling us, be yourself. That's what I learned from the Bible. God telling us, don't become a God, stay human. So, book of Genesis, when seen differently, gives us a blessing and an identity that I am spiritual being at once a human being. And therefore, I'm trying to explain that if we want to look for a relief from breathing climate crisis, we need to aspire for a relief. This aspiration for our relief allows us to search for inspiration. When we look for inspiration, our aspiration of not gasping for breath, but we breathe in a dynamic peace, a peace within, a peace around. And so our common home, our common earth, is not only attended by labor, which is human, but it is literally touched spiritually by us humans. So our corporeal understanding, our body understanding, our physical understanding becomes a spiritual endeavor, becomes totally a spiritual enrichment of our common home. And so, my dear friends, there is in India what we call a breath. A breath that we take in and we give out. What we take in is life giving for me. What we give out is not so life giving. It is sickening. That's why we are told to wear the mask during this corona time. So, what we breathe out could even mean death for the others. And so, there is a beautiful way by which we began even today is to convert our breath into sound, our breath into music, our breath into a song. And this is how breathing climate crisis should be, that we begin to breathe in what is good for us by creating an environment where the breath would be life giving, and we give further a breath that will help us to move on. Like the Indian sages have said, the eternal sound, this Aum, and that is Shanti, peace, peace not of pacific silence, peace not of the cemetery, but a peace that comes from dynamic encounter of forces, of powers that I have, that you have, that everyone has. People millions lived before us had, people millions living afterwards will have. But right now, in this cosmic situation, in this planetary situation, in my locality, in what way can I take this day forward in a way that my consciousness, conscientiously, that I can handle reality. I want to talk a little more on how world climate crisis can be looked at. We are talking about the world climate crisis. Everywhere seasons are changing. But yesterday, one in our future lab shared with us that perhaps the seasons are returning to normal. If it does, that particular part of the globe perhaps is beginning to experience a change. Will such change become global? Will such change enable people on the whole of planet Earth experience what could mean security of a climate? $1 million question. So climate crisis is something that can be global, which needs to be handled, but whatever we try to do, it must bring relief locally. Everyone in their house, in their neighborhood, in their environment, can they begin to feel safe? Can they begin to protect themselves from a climatic distress? It's not something psychological, it's not something that is only social, it is a perspective of spirituality. It is a perspective of the entire cosmos becoming one in me. And this is what my Tamil Siddhas constantly tell us, microcosm and the macrocosm. Mahatma Gandhi was talking about a global vision but a local action. Mass production, but production by the masses, Gandhi would say. So, employment security, particularly in agriculture, allows for everyone around the area to operate with their hands on the soil. This is possible when population is dense, like in our place, when land is fragmented, like in our place, when you are not able to deal with extensive tracts of land, when villages and people are crushed and crowded, then we need to think differently out of the box. And that's what we have tried in moving Muhil to Kar Muhil, so that people can do collective farming where small plots of land can once again become life sustaining. Life sustaining system in agriculture for food, for medicine, fodder for the cattle, timber for fuel, and for foresting so that there is an eco situation that balances our local conditions of life. This kind of a perspective is not simply agrarian project. This kind of a perspective is not simply a nature-based life. This is spirituality, according to me. This is recognizing who am I and where am I and with whom do I live and where do I go to the end of my life. A purpose in life, a process in life, a protective attitude in life, above all, a promoting attitude in life. So a positive attitude in life. We may be breathing in a climate crisis, but no situation is so negative, so critical that we cannot come out of it. Just as the common earth spins again and again and has spun for thousands and millions of years, we would not be there when it crashes. But we should not crash within the span of less than a century of our years. So climate crisis, breathing in climate crisis, let it not put our spirit down. It is not crushing, it is creative. We need to bounce back. Exactly like this coronavirus, we can find the way out. Time will heal. And that futuristic approach is spirituality. So I would like to place before you for reflection and consideration. Spirituality is not something only to do with God and religions and prayers and worship. Spirituality is to do with the spirit of reality. The spirit of reality is futuristic. Spirit of reality is immortal. It is eternal. And spirit of reality is cosmic. It is everywhere. You just have to catch that power and allow that energy to be dynamic in your life. And once that life it becomes dynamic in you, it doesn't matter about your age. It doesn't matter about where you are. Everyone around you will breathe, not climate crisis, but will breathe positive energy. Let us share this energy. I think I should come to a sort of a break so that we can have some questions and I can add more. Often enough, they tell me my answers are longer than my input. So in case there are some questions by way of discussion, we can move on and go deeper into this topic of spirituality for our common earth, but take it from the point of view of reality, of matter, of earth, of elements, of labor, of society, of humanity, of righteousness, of being creative, human intention, human imagination, above all, inspiration leading into an aspiration for a breath, breathing, climate crisis in a creative way. Move beyond crisis, move through crisis. Good, my friends. I wait for comments, perhaps to discuss. Yuli, I hope I have done something.
Thank you, Clement, for this energetic, powerful, and deep contribution, where, if I got it right, spirituality penetrates all our life, is dynamic, is powerful, and is reality in some way when we make it reality. It's, let's say, a very, powerful and engaged vision about spirituality, and something which is not just given, but which has to be activated by each one of us. And now I would invite all listeners to bring their questions in the chat, and then I will got them, and so we can have a kind of exchange with Father Clement and together with all of us. And to have this a bit more lively, I ask Constanza Kalix to be with me on my side. I don't know, Clement, if you know her. Constanza Calix is head of the youth section here at the Goetheanum. And so we try, the both of us, to share this round with questions.
Thank you very much for your wonderful contribution.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And perhaps we step in with one thing which made us reaching out to you, asking you to give this contribution about spirituality in the climate crisis. And this has been, and this is perhaps a little bit strange for many of our listeners, that in October, the Pope Franciscus, he came out with a new encyclica, and it's called Fratelli Tutti. And when we read it, it was mainly Constanza, it was like a kind of call. Therein, in the first chapters, is something formulated as a kind of analysis of our time, which is in certain way very parallel to our analysis, and then we thought that you, as also being a Catholic priest, you perhaps are the one who can build the bridge between something which could be felt as out, far away from anthroposophy, something which a pope brings into our time, and something which is for us an engagement in spirituality. And therefore we came to you. And now, Father Clement, how did you read this encyclica from Pope Franciscus, where he goes very deep and narrow to Francis of Assisi, who is in some way, let's say, the patron of all our striving for a healthy earth?
A very nice question, Uli. I thank you for it. I shied away from using the text. And those of you who can note it down, I am now reading 117, 117, and 118. And this to me captures in a nutshell the Franciscan approach and the Pope's underpinning what is important for today. And here there is no question of anthroposophic society versus Catholic Church. We are now talking about inclusive spirituality, global spirituality. We are talking about spirituality of common earth and our common home. And here is the Pope who has written, when we speak of the need to care for our common home, our planet, we appeal to that spark of universal consciousness and mutual concern that may still be present in people's hearts, which means the spark of universal consciousness and mutual concern. This is an extraordinary inclusivity. The divine spark, it's not simply the spark that anyone ideologically or philosophically or culturally or historically identify as this or that spark. This is the spark of universal consciousness and mutual concern that may still be present in people's hearts, not still be present in the Catholic Church or Christianity or this tradition or that society, anthroposophic society, theosophic society. No, it's in people's hearts. That's why I said people's power. Another quote just down the line is, as a community, the whole world is a human community. As a community, we have an obligation to ensure that every person lives with the dignity and has a sufficient opportunities for his or her integral development. Integral development. just these two citations tells me that this Fratelli Tutti, coming after Laudato Si, and earlier enjoy the gospel, celebrate the gospel. So Pope Francis is literally saying what the angels sang at Christmas: peace to people of goodwill. So, and that's only 2000 years. Human history is much more than that. So we are taking baby steps in this inclusive spirituality. And I think we have a long way to go. And let us take the balance and stand up to embrace everyone into this breath of climate of our common home.
Thank you. Constanza, would you add something about perhaps Francis of Assisi and...
Yes, thank you very much, Father Clement. This task that Francis from Assisi brought to really relate to the tiniest expression in the wholeness of creation, to look to the birds, to look to the sun, to look to all those what he names then brothers and sisters around. This is sometimes not so easy nowadays, out of this division that we went in the last 400, 500 years in our society and in our understanding of our relation with the world and with the others. And so you spoke before about the elements of immortality and eternity. And this is a huge dimension. We also heard about this huge dimension from the point of view of science on the first day of the conference. 10,000, 100,000 years. We are not in eternity, but very close to that if we imagine 10,000 or 100,000 years. But then in this encyclica and also what you said, we are asked to act now, today. In the middle, we can say, of eternity, or out of this huge, huge realm of eternity, I am asked to act today and now and in the space where I am living in. And this is, in a certain sense, not easy to bring together. What could you say about this task of realization of eternity in the very moment we are living, in the very environment we are connected to?
I shall try to share with you my answer to a question that people often ask me when they come to our garden here. It's very difficult to do agriculture here. First of all, we are in a rain shadow area. Some years we get only one evening of rain in the whole year, and sometimes it's flooding. The soil is not rich, and yet it's an agricultural land. So people ask me, Father, you can go anywhere in the world. You have links. Why can't you set up your garden and your project somewhere else? I tell them, I cannot shift this soil anywhere else. I can shift myself. Similarly, people there are who cannot shift out of this place. Young people may shift. What about the old? What about mothers with children? What about the sick? What about the livestock? What about the green? What about the rivers, the water, the rocks, the plants, and the grass that grows so easily in our land? These are gifts for us. This is Franciscan. We live where we find ourselves, and we make that our home. And so it is the commitment to our common home is very necessary. We don't go where opportunities are. We have to create an opportunity. We have to blend with the environment. We have to breathe the nature around us. Only then we will begin to love and commit what is around us. Otherwise, we are like jumping across everywhere and doing nothing anywhere. And finally, we disappear, leaving no footprint. So if we want to do something, I was about 35, 40 years when I began to talk there. Now in my 65, 67, I can tell the young people, this is my story of 30 years pilgrimage in one place, trying to see how something can sprout, something can grow, people can find a meaning in life, people can find a future. And so we work for the next generation, we work for the following generation, we leave behind for the fourth generation, and that's our vision for the future. That's our song. Kesara, Sara. But we do today what is necessary as urgent. And it is possible to find the fruits and results.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Clement, you spoke in your contribution about the cosmic power, which became then an individual, personal power, and then this expression of people power. And it's not people's power, if I got it right, it's people power. There behind you have a kind of concept or of, let's say, experience where I would like to go a little bit deeper in, and perhaps you can connect this with a question which came out of the chat, which I will read to you. With what kind of development will the people emerge from this crisis? Is the concern for the hour of humanity, the feeling of the we? Can it be felt also where people are connected via media?
Well, I shall move from the last bit to the first in the question that you read. In some of the houses I visit in the villages around here, people have their educated children working in Singapore or in Malaysia or in the Gulf. And those who are fortunate have got themselves employed in the United States as software people, computer engineers. They come back, get married, and go back. The grandparents and the grandchildren meet only through the media. The funerals, many of them, the children are not around. They cannot make it in time. And so they do it always on the video, on the WhatsApp, on the Skype. So families are living through WhatsApp and Skype nowadays. Every evening, the grandparents are talking to their grandchildren. So media does sustain relationships. Media supports emergency critical situations. Medical people are reaching out to the rural corners and doing Wi-Fi instructions for very intricate operations, surgical operations. So media does bring humanity together, to pulse together. There is power of people who use media in the appropriate way. To the next level, the people power is not what I have something that I can negotiate. It's not something that I have that I can appropriate. People power is there for us to tap. It's like the waterfall. Water keeps falling. It's up to us to make good use of it. A good natural waterfall will always be there. But what use is it for us if we are far away? But if we are near the waterfall, we can make use of it. So where there are no people, it's not possible for us to think of people power. But where there is millions of people crowded together, like in my country, then we have to recognize the power that is around me. That energy is something that I cannot be indifferent to. So while media and technology can help us in one way, on the other hand, I have to be careful in dumping a lot of technology where humans can stand up with human power, even to labor in the field. I would prefer 100 people working on the farm rather than 2 tractors plowing the whole place, if there are 100 people. So Globally, situations are different, but I'm living in a place where thousands of people are there in a very dense place. But now they are dumping a lot of tractors. That's not needed. So this is climate crisis. We need diesel, we need drivers, we need tractors and maintenance. So that's the critical situation of technology peeping in where it is not needed, where there is people power. If people are applied, then energy is used of the people. Lastly, the cosmic power is there for tapping again. Solar energy, everybody is saying, is renewable energy. And fossil energy is non-renewable. So it stands to reason that we become more and more dependent on solar energy, even though technologically it may be more expensive. But if our mind has told us that we can capture solar energy, then we should give it a priority rather than dig deep into the soil and into the planet Earth and bring out fossil energy. So we have to think, so spirituality now begins to cut ice between economics and politics and powers. So we move away from spirituality. When you keep to spirituality, it is very clear that we got to be mutually concerned and mutually respectful.
Thank you very much. So this power means also the power to find spaces to work with, people to work with, so opening opportunities by ourselves to contribute to our common endeavor. And so we have here some questions regarding that, and some of them are really asking you to describe a little bit more concrete how is your work, how your work looks daily in India on one hand, and the other question also related to that is how do you practice this work with the farmers? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the specificity of your environment where you are working for these common endeavors.
Well, you see, the whole pilgrimage or the journey started with my own personal experience of coping with very critical and serious allergic reaction to allopathic medicine or school medicine. So I was handed over to death, so to say. It was very critical. When I was 33 years old, 34 years back. It was a herbal medicine in a very simple way, but very carefully, meticulously prepared and applied. It's, I think the anthroposophic doctors will understand the therapies. So the medicines that come from the herbal plants, which finally brought me back to life, gave me a vision that I must resurrect things, one. Number two, my church practice moved away and I went into people's practice. I began to mobilize people to share this common concern. And mobilizing this common concern, now it is literally like living about 16 to 20 hours a day working. And this is the kind of work that I don't expect everybody to do. But people need to be somehow promoted. People need to be somehow brought together, mobilized. People need to be accompanied. I'm not God. I'm not going to be here all the time. But somehow I have to hand over. And so I have a whole team of young people who are more or less caught the imagination. When you keep on saying certain things, and when it matters to them, when it is meaningful to them, they begin to absorb it. They begin to echo it. So the echo is now asking me to give them management training, marketing training, organizational structural training. So I move from basic grassroots level work, which I'm still doing. I move on to organizing them into companies or organizing them into structures. So further on, we network. We network with others. We brought Getehanam Social Initiatives Network into our place. We had them here with us in 2016. And so they saw Getehanam, and it was an experience for them. So My life is to put together people who are willing to share and who are willing to dare. So these are two words that I will put together. You must be willing to share and you must be confident to dare and move on to the different future. Take a new path. Why not?
Thank you. Do you have a question which can just relate to this? I have a question here coming out of the chat. Is the readity, I don't know the word, but it's like this, is the readity depending on my standpoint, or is the readity not beyond a standpoint which leads to a dynamic thinking beyond standpoints? Perhaps one can say beyond the diverse religions, beyond the diverse embeddedness in the different cultures. Is there, perhaps we can broaden a little bit the question or the perspective where the question tries to go, in which way there is a kind of human dignity and human sovereignty and human identity, which is not at all connected to where I am, but depending that, as we said before, I am very identical with the place, the life situation, the cultural situation I am in. I think the question raises a little bit again this field which is appearing in me between where I am incarnated and in the presence and what I am, let's say, in the eternity.
Uli, the way I can look at this, what you're trying to say or what I'm trying to capture is, I normally think of this dynamics of the continuum. That was like, for example, if I'm human, if I'm becoming more and more authentically human, there is movement from the material to the spiritual world. I become more and more divine, and people recognize that the authenticity of my humanity is a recognition of objective divinity. So I am no more subjectively self-centered, but I am identified as I am, and therefore something divine is recognized. So it's a continuum. If I really seriously talk about God, talk about divinity, and if that God is not something up in the air or some myth or some concept that I'm trying to defend, then an authentic divinity that I'm talking of becomes gradually incarnate as a true human spirit, because I am human. So if I cannot talk about God unless God is somewhere human. So this human divine continuum is in an ambience where this is possible. If everybody is trying to inquisitively trying to condemn me for talking something different, then I will not dare. I will not share. But if the environment allows me the security, then I can dare to think differently and I can share. So the sharing and the daring has a location, and that's the safety of the environment. So this triangular perspective is what would give us where we are in reality and cosmic eternity. So spiritually, we are always caught within this triangle, a continuum in an environment. The best of two ends, we meet somewhere in the continuum. And it's in the environment of where we can share and we can also try daring new things. So it's a societal environment, it's a natural environment. So it's a spiritual line, but it is practical. It's not up in the air. We don't dream. But if we dream it, we are planning.
Thank you very much. So this is a very understandable perspective that we live in a continuum, and suddenly in this continuum something happens as the pandemic. It is not, well, we can of course say it is a continuation of the ways we have been living together, but at the same time it's kind of interrupting the stream of this continuum and asking something new. And where do we find the force for this acknowledgement that in the continuum that we are living in, suddenly something new asks me to do something new? Can you understand? So this being in the continuum is a very wide perspective that I totally can share. At the same time, for young people, as an example, what happened this year with the pandemic situation and also the consequences of the pandemic is something that is an interruption in a certain sense of their own dreams, of their own expectations. So it's an interruption of this continuum. And where can we find this inner strength to connect again to this continuity of life? Can you say something about that?
I'm really thrilled that you asked that question, because I'm grappling with a similar question myself. And the interruption is so phenomenal. It's so global. It practically put everything to a standstill. The churches are empty. The temples are empty. The priests are jobless. Even the Pope is alone praying. So, you know what I mean? So what everybody thought was normal is no longer normal. So this kind of a stop, look, and we start again is such a phenomenal reality that we are going through. I think we are historic people, and that itself makes us agents of history. We are angels of cosmos. We got to be more careful and responsible in how we handle this stop, look, and start again. So we should not be haphazard. We should be very responsible in wanting to share not simply our fears, but also our focus. What are we focusing ourselves on? Is it the routine annual plan, or is it a dynamic, cosmic unfolding of something different? So this is a time where we can break out. A breakdown helps us to improvise, indigenize, and rethink. And so we are challenged to become creators of a new earth, creators of a new history. And so young people, you have a chance to start again, kickstart a new ride. You know, you can't go back and say, we want to get back. You can get back. Millions may not be able to do that daring thing. But I think history is challenging all those who want to dare a new future. After this stopping, we don't have to do the same thing for another 100 years. We can do something different. I won't be there for another 100 years, but you young people can create a new world.
Thank you very much. So you would say that staying in this continuity is to be in the challenge of restarting, of a new beginning. Would this be this stream of life that we can always start again? This is a wonderful thought, I think, also not only, but also for young people.
Just to add, always Christianity thought Sundays you must be in the church. Now, pandemic tells us don't go to church even on Easter. So, because God is in your house, God is in your bed, God is in your kitchen. So Franciscus is more prophetic in saying, get out of the church, find God. Don't go to God where he's locked up.
Get out of the church, be in the street, get out of monastery, you said in one of our preparing talks. I would like to bring to you, my dear friend Clement, a very personal question, up to you if you like to answer or not. each time when we encounter either physically or either online, you are in a good mood. You are always in a good mood. I have to say, sometimes I'm not in a good mood. I have too much sorrows. I'm struggling with my situation. I think we will not go through the crisis, for example, with the Goethe and so on. So when I'm in this mood, when I contact you, when we come together, I go out of our encounter with new sunshine in my soul, I would say. You have this kind of humor or good mood in you, and where is your source? Is this your relation with God? Is this your relation with spirituality of earth?
You are absolutely right. My relationship with God, not up in the air. My relationship with God with this kind of social, environmental milieu. So, which is the ultimate. And there is no social environment milieu that is so bad that can crush your spirit. There is always a window to the stars. There's always a lunar impulse. There is always a sun to come around the darkness. And you could be that spark of that sun. You could be that moon in the night. You could be the star in the sky. I tell myself that. So then the divine spark catches. And that's my secret, my friend. So when everything is so gloomy and if you are so bad, I also feel very bad. If you ask my people here, they will share with you that I also go through patches of darkness like you. I don't say I'm living like an angel. But there is this, nothing can crush your spirit. Your spirit is part of the eternal spark. And you shall be enslaved by no one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe a last question to bring us back to the earth in a certain sense, because you brought us also a little bit to eternity. And there's a very concrete question. What kind of grass is that you showed us? Is it from the chat?
This is Palmer Rosa grass. Palmer Rosa.
Okay.
It grows everywhere, but what grows in our farm has a peculiar combination of geraniol oil. And it's very exquisite. And the oil is already part of our Siddha system of medicine. And this is 100% pure, not blended, not demoisturized. It's Demeter quality. And you just have to apply it to the head. And over 3 months, you won't get nightmares. I'm not advertising, but I'm just saying there is this fire element that catches your soul from this oil. And this is, I find, is an exquisite example of all the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Because this oil will evaporate. You cannot store it. After 2 years, it's not there in the barrels. Unless you really seal it up and tighten it up. You need all the technology to protect it. Otherwise, the oil is distilled temporarily and gone. But this grass, you can make it into a marketable product, or you can make it as a conversion process from polluted land to a rejuvenated land. A wasted farmland can become a productive food, fodder, and anything that can grow. So this is a process for conversion, which is productive process of conversion. The waiting time is productively utilized. So it's a design that through horticulturists, biodynamic experts, and we designed it.
Yes, perhaps this grass and what this grass can do for the land, for the soil, to depollute it or to be converted, transformed in this healthy oil, can be a kind of symbol or representative image of this spirituality, which we need for our earth and which we receive from our earth. And I think we came to an end of our sharing of our time, and we would like, in the name of all of the listeners, of the whole audience of this conference, really to thank you, Clement, to be with us, to engage yourself in this, let's say, crazy situation that being kilometers, thousands of kilometers, not on the same place, and to try to work together on a theme like spirituality on our earth. So thank you so much. All the best for your life, for your place, for your engagement, and hopefully we can see and meet in the next month or in the next years. Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay well and live well. And thank you for all the services that you are doing to the world. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.